Today's guest, we have a near and dear friend of mine, Quyne Vu, who is an artist coming to you out of San Jose, California. She is a writer, singer, and assistant director. She's trained with voice coaches Claire Hosterman, Mark Reynolds, and worked alongside the likes of Dust Breaks, Matthew Lee, and Alex Yen. She writes music as well as shows, but for today's conversation, we covered how she found her specialty, or should I say specialties, as well as what advice she has for aspiring actors, singers, and assistant directors. Enjoy the podcast, and as always, please remember to share, like, subscribe to this Vodcast if you enjoyed listening to it or think it'll be useful to someone you know. Without further ado, let's go. Quyne Vu, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Oh wait, was I supposed to do this in the English accent?
You were supposed to do whatever accent you want. So we'll go over why she's asking that in a second, maybe later, maybe in a different show.
Yeah.
But you do whatever accent you want.
Yeah, I know. So Angel and I have been best friends for quite a couple of years. And sometimes one of the things we'll do is we'll go on hikes and just play around with accents. So we figured this is not the important part of the podcast. We'll get to that really soon. But I will be doing an English accent. I will be doing that for this podcast today.
So you are going to switch accents.
I am.
All right, great.
Why not?
Thank you. Okay, so the first question, which you probably get asked all the time, is why do you do what you do?
Because I really love it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very simple question, but there's a reason why we should always encourage kids to find what they like. And the purpose usually comes later on, because I've met a lot of kids. I've actually mentored them in public speaking, and they do have a lot of deep insights, even though they're young. But I guess for the most part, sometimes when you're young and you just like trying a bunch of things, you're trying drawing, you're trying sports, you realize you like something and you may not know why until your later years. And so for me, I've always loved singing and acting. I've always loved drawing. I love the arts, and the purpose came a lot later on when I started to experience a lot of things in life. And I think it's the culmination of that childlike passion and excitement coupled up with my life experiences, trying to heal from my life experiences, and not just healing it. Because if I were just focused on healing myself and this is all just for me, and if I were just to make music for me, I would just keep it in my room. But because I care about the collective, I care about the amount of people that I'm impacting. That's why I do it on a public platform. I think there are many reasons why I chose to do it on a public platform, but one reason I'll share with you is when I was singing Exeunt live, somebody came up to me and told me, "Thank you so much for singing that song. I just went through a divorce and I needed to hear it." And so from there, and many other people who have had similar experiences with my work, it really encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? So you brought up a couple things there. Thank you for elaborating a little bit. So there's no question you are doing many, many creative endeavors. Mm-hmm. And so one of them would be writing 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 albums, going on your 5th album. And so who exactly, because I've listened to all your albums. Your last one, by the way, amazing. If you haven't heard it yet, I recommend you check it out. Spotify. It's an amazing album. It really is. And so who do you make music for now, since it's probably changed since you first started making music?
Oh yeah, it's a very interesting question. Yeah, no, fun fact, he actually listened to The Magician, the early mixes before I actually released it. And so it was really cool to just he's followed my career since my first album. So it was really cool to get the reaction of, oh, wow, this is you in 2022, versus 2017. And you're right, it has evolved since then. I remember my first album, I wrote it because I had a lot of stories within me. It's almost like that naivety when you're a child. You do things because you like them, but you don't necessarily know why. And so the first album was kind of a reflection of that. I was like, I have stories to tell and I just want to put out there. I'm not sure why, I have stories. and then I think like the following albums, Charlie and the Storyteller and Nobody's Girl, those two were more about me discovering my artistry. So they were completely for me. Yeah, the Charlie and the Storyteller one was me trying to process my feelings for a special friend of mine. And then it was also kind of for him, because I have this funny little way of writing songs to express thoughts that I cannot say directly to a person. So I'm just like, you know what? They're going to hear it on the radio. They're going to hear it in the speakers and they'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a way to bridge the gap between human intimacy of this modern world. Isn't it interesting? Because I feel like a lot of us are really afraid to be intimate with one another, like intimate in terms of the emotional connection and the way that the things that we wish we could communicate but have difficulty doing. And I think that art is like one way to do it. Yeah. And so I think that those two albums in particular were like made for those purposes. And I think for The Magician, I made it for those who feel like they feel oppressed in a way. And it's to highlight the stories of the impacted. And I've been impacted in my own way, but I'm not trying to make it about me. I want it to resonate with whoever feels similar feelings, even though their situations are different.
That's great. Yeah, I can kind of hear that in the album as well, especially the very last song. Thank you for elaborating on that question. And so at what point did you know that you were going to be a singer or an assistant director, or that this was the career path for you? Since there's many people, myself included, that have sort of different philosophies as to how we find our career. Some people, I think they could be boiled down.
Yeah.
Of course, there's many ways, but it could be boiled down to usually just two. And so the first would be sample a lot of different industries or careers, and then make your decision off that, which is sort of how I went about it. It seems like you, knowing you and your career history of jobs that you've had, it seems like you sort of knew from the get-go. But so yeah, the question would be, when did you truly know that being in the arts was what you wanted to do and what you knew that you were going to do?
I mean, exposure at a young age is really a great thing for a lot of youths and myself. And I think that because I was exposed at a young age, and there's the whole Asian stereotype of Asian parents wanting their kids to be doctors, lawyers, and such. My parents never grilled that within me, and so I was very lucky to be encouraged to be an artist. And I think I've always loved it since then. I always knew it was my biggest dreams. And even as a child, I knew that one of my biggest fears was, am I going to be stable? Am I going to have a house? I'm afraid of ending up homeless or something. And I think really genuinely, I was just really blessed to really know how much I wanted it at a young age. And I was definitely blocked somewhere along the way. I'm 28 now, and I've had some blockages where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to be in an office job. It's fine. And then some life event would happen. I'm like, no, I really want this. How can I have this? I realized I was miserable if I wasn't following it. So I've known it since I was a child, but I have strayed from the path several times until I was like, well, every time I stray, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what was the time that you strayed away and you realized, oh my God, this is the last time I'm going to stray away?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I think there were 2 points. I think I was still in school when I have this idol of mine who's a singer-songwriter, and he also suffers from bipolar disorder too. We both are the same type. And so he was really instrumental in inspiring me to do what I do. I took songwriting classes with him. One day, before he went on American Idol, he wasn't as famous yet. He invited me to his show in Texas. So I flew over, and because his music spoke to me more than any other artist had, and I was seeing him do his thing, and the venue was so small, we were actually like about 6 feet away from where he was on stage, and I'm just like rocking out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm not sitting there, I was standing. I was like, man, I feel so fucking alive. If I want to do what he's doing, I want to do that. I was about 20 at the time. And so started my journey of making my album It's a Wacky World. That concert was in December 2014, December 28th. And then I released my album 3 years later when I learned the process of how to make an album. And I released it on December 28th, 2017 to sort of commemorate, that moment where I was like, I'm going to be a rock star just like this man, so that was one moment. And then the second moment probably happened in beginning of pandemic. And I was like, well, everyone's miserable and I'm extra miserable because I'm doing a job that I don't feel like I belong. And so I was like, okay, how do I make my life less miserable? Just do what I love. Yeah.
So the catalyst of you finding what you currently love and probably will love for the rest of your life was you saw like an example of what you could be through you didn't mention his name, but your mentor, the person who inspired you and helped. Well, the one
Dalton Rappattoni.
You didn't say it. There we go. So Dalton, there we go. So Dalton was sort of the example that you strove to be like, and you ended up actually taking the steps by writing, making an album, and quitting your 9 to 5, right? Okay.
Yeah. That's another thing I do want to mention about idols too, because when people are concerned about finding their goals, they say imitation is the best flattery or something like that. Yeah. And people, you know, I think at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, if you're an artist, if you're a writer or a coach, you have to find your own style. And it is difficult to find your style from the ground up. However, there's nothing wrong with taking what you like from somebody, trying it and seeing if it resonates. So for the first couple of albums, it was just like me taking what I liked from other artists like Dalton. My first album was almost a carbon copy of some of his songs when I first made it. And that was because I really admire him. I wanted to do what he's doing. I don't know who I am as an artist yet. So I'm just going to put myself in shoes for a second. And then as I grow as an artist, I'll take what I want to take and leave what I want to leave as I evolve. And so some of my other albums, they sound drastically different because I'm always trying to grow and change. And so by the time I got to Nobody's Girl and The Magician, those two albums are the closest thing to who Quyne is as an artist, because the previous albums were me kind of discovering myself.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that you're going to keep on changing. So is your music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So some of the people that might be listening to you right now that are on the fence about whether to take the route that you did and do the artist route. I wouldn't say starving artists, seeing how you're sipping on smoothies at the moment. But yeah, I'm sure there's been peaks and valleys in your career of being an artist where you maybe didn't even think that you were going to pull it off. But we could save that for another day. We'll table that. But for those people that are on the fence about living the life that their parents want for them, that they sometimes want for themselves, they don't mind biting their tongues and working, let's just say, a corporate job, 9 to 5, but they ultimately know that it's not what they really want. And so they're thinking, maybe I'll just do this while on the weekends I do what I really want. What advice would you give to those people that sort of want to have one foot in each door?
I mean, I actually kind of did that when I was working my 9 to 5. I was doing literally 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m. at this community college. It wasn't a terrible job. It's just I knew I didn't belong. And so I would do the work, and then I would be really excited, kind of almost counting the hours until I got home to work at my audio workstation and do covers and write songs. And so I felt bad because I had such great people. Shout out to everybody at Evergreen Valley College. Gave me a great learning experience, truly. And the people were wonderful. It's so hard to leave. However, there were moments where I was like, I can't do this. And I was counting down the hours, like, okay, it's 3 hours until I can leave. And then I'd go home super excited, and then I would just work at my audio workstation until my mum had to knock on the door and say, "Are you ready for dinner?" And I'm like, "No, I'm trying to mix it." I spent an hour doing it because I was so lost in it, and I was like, "Oh man, maybe I could do this for the rest of my life. Maybe I could have a stable career and then have something to look forward to." That was a very good way for me to transition into it, and so I do recommend people follow their heart, but they have to consider the practical aspects first. There is always a practical way to pursue your career. The whole starving artist thing, yes, it's a real fear, but I found it that with careful planning, with saving your money, if anybody wants to pursue the industry, saving your money is one of the biggest things I need to tell you. Yeah, it's an expensive industry. So I will say, I think a lot of that careful planning and constantly updating my skills, maybe on the go, especially as a freelancer, you have to constantly be looking for jobs versus when I was at my 9 to 5, I just knew I was going to get a paycheck every month. Yeah, just the preparedness is what really is keeping me here, because it's not just following your heart and just seeing what sticks, it's a balance.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so you mentioned briefly skills. So let's talk about that for a second. For those that don't know what I guess we could talk about hard skills, soft skills, but what skills do you recommend people if they want to be, let's just go with a assistant director.
Okay.
So for those that want to be an assistant director, and then maybe you could tell us about those that want to be singers. What skills would you suggest they refine or pick up if they don't already have that skill?
Okay. I can tell from my own experience because I'm a newer or less experienced person within that field versus singing. I have a lot to say about singing. So when it comes to assistant directing, my journey was my middle school teachers just always saw that I had this leadership quality that was untapped. For some reason, I didn't see it within myself. They literally nominated me for this junior workshop, and I went all the way to Washington, D.C. We had lawyer mock trials. So it was this program where people are hoping to cultivate the next president, the next senator. Basically, it was a program for like baby politicians. Yeah. So anyway, I did that when I was in middle school. And I think this will all come back to assistant directing, but I don't know how teachers do it. Teachers are truly unsung heroes and they're so underpaid. They all noticed that I had some kind of untapped quality. And it wasn't like I was screaming to be the leader or the vice president of the school or anything. I wasn't. I was trying to not get attention for that kind of stuff. But for some reason, they saw that in me. And I think that you need to look at what you're naturally good at before you choose where you want to fall into in any industry. And so I was afraid to lead a set, but I realized that you need to fall into whatever your personality strengths are. So if you don't mind being a second in command, try to look at like assistant directing if you're on a set. Because for me, like I love to lead, and I think I do have leadership skills that I didn't know I had within myself. But I also don't want to be at the very, very top. So I think that's why I also like assistant directing, because I like being someone's right-hand person to help them get their ideas out and also manage a team and just make sure that we're all here and working together. So being a people person, I think human connection, believe it or not, will help you grow in any industry, in any position that you end up in. And I think that despite the technical skills that people learn to make a film, to work a camera. If we're just talking about assistant director specifically, people skills are a huge thing because you're managing so many different departments and you're trying to get this whole thing together. It's like the stage manager of a show. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
So cultivating leadership skills as well as being able to delegate. Is that right?
Yeah, delegation, negotiation. And you also, because you're co-leading a set, you want people to be happy working there. And so people have asked me what my assistant director style is, and I say camp counselor. I welcome people in, I make people feel warm, like, hey guys, we're ready to get to work. And as you're leading a set too, when certain disagreements happen between departments, you also have to be the one to kind of rein everyone in.
Gotcha. So hone in on the skills that you're currently good at. You may not have seen it, but your teacher saw it back in the past if you were younger. And so leadership, that's one that you've zeroed in on, as well as being able to delegate and then also be problem solver. I would say sociable, since you said you're the camp counselor.
Yeah.
So you welcome people in. So you're sociable. That's another point. Okay. So acting. So for those that want to be actors, what skills do you believe that they should zero in on and cultivate more?
Well, definitely go to your acting lessons. Anyone who thinks that they're a good actor, probably there's some that are really good actors, and it's great that they're confident in themselves, but there's always ways to improve, just as there are with singers. I think that by now I've had a lot of experience acting on stage and in cinema, and I do think that I'm a good actor. I can say that with confidence. However, I also have a lot to learn. And so some of the best actors are constantly like checking in on themselves, like, I've played 167 roles, that are a certain way. What happens if I try this other aspect of myself that I've never tapped into? So like always follow your curiosity, because your curiosity leads you to the unknown, and we cannot grow if we just stay where we know. And so I definitely want to encourage other actors to not be typecast so they could try other roles. And another thing that has come up quite recently as I talk to other actors, there's that whole stereotype of actors moving to LA from wherever they come from, and they become a waitress or they become a bartender, and they do something completely not related to the industry. And I think that it's changing. I think there's a lot of actors like me who are doing a lot of background work, a lot of production roles. And so I do want to take this moment to recommend to aspiring actors, if you want a side hustle to make money, but advance yourself at the same time, please take a production. Please be a PA, a production assistant. And if you want to excel in the film industry, why not be in the film industry? Why are you spending your time making money in a restaurant when you could be making money and making connections at the same time? But you're also learning the inner workings of creating a film so that you're not later on a difficult actor to work with, because production needs to do things. Because there's some actors where it's okay, there's some actors where they've never done production work in their entire life, and they do something on set that kind of screws everyone over because they don't understand how their action changes the flow of production. And I think that's really helped me as an actor, because I want to focus on my role, but I also want to make things keep going, keep the ball rolling for production and not get in their way.
Yeah. So a couple key takeaways from listening to you. Those of you that do want to be actors, rather than do the stereotypical come to or go to LA, New York, wherever, usually it's those two, be a waiter, waitress, bartender, server. It's great for the tips. It makes sense why people did it in the past. But new age advice would be get in the production arena and start networking, learn how the pieces fit, learn how you can play a valuable role, and learn how you can not screw things and screw people over in the production field, as well as the whole entertainment industry. So network, learn how to fit into the bigger piece of the puzzle, or learn how to fit into sets.
Yeah.
Big takeaways, build your network.
Yeah.
And then, last one, earn that money.
Earn that money.
There you go.
Yeah, because we said that. I said that in the beginning. It's like, save your money.
Also, I've been told by several people, not just yourself, that working, depending on what position you're playing, maybe if you're an executive assistant, or maybe you just work on a really big blockbuster, then your earning potential could be up to 10 times what actors, maybe C-list, B-list actors currently make. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it varies from production to production. It's hard because it's freelance. You can't really control everything. There are standard rates. I think that as a lesser known actor, my rate isn't that great. And that's why I went to production. And, it did start out that way, where I was like, okay, I want to be an actor. And so I'm going to do production just to make some side money. But I really just want to be an actor, right? That's how it started. How it's going now, I love production. I think when everyone starts out as a PA, it's the entry level position for film industries. And then you just kind of figure out which department you belong in if you want to advance and get a bigger rate, And so I will say, ever since I became an assistant director, the rate's been looking pretty nice.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. And I love doing it. So now I'm like, I don't know, I can't leave production because I genuinely love it. I think in general, I learned that I don't care so much about being the face on screen as much as I used to when I was younger. I think when you're younger, you do want more attention for who you are, for your face. As I've grown up, I've just wanted to make movies to impact people. They don't have to recognize that Quyne Mariah is a part of it. I want them to take from the piece of art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you touched on suggestions for people who are interested in being assistant directors, actors. Now, what about singers?
Okay. Well, the same advice that I gave to actors earlier was to always work on your craft, like acting lessons. Same thing goes for singers. Singing lessons. I coach beginning to intermediate levels of singing, but even so, I have always had things to work on with my voice. My voice is far from what I would ever want it to be. I had very high goals for my voice, but I choose to put myself out there because I think that if I don't put anything out there, I won't have an audience. And I think you need to grow with your audience. As your audience grows, you grow. And so I always tell this to singers. There's a lot of singers, songwriters out there. And a very common thing that I run into when people ask for advice is that they feel like they're not ready to put things out. They have songs, they don't think it sounds great, and they're still taking singing lessons or whatever, or they're working in the voice, but they just don't feel like taking that first step and doing something. Or they want to save the best work, and that's fine. There's songs that I've tucked away and I haven't released yet because I know they're not ready, but because I have so many songs, why don't we just do these first? It's okay. And the point is to just fucking do it. And a lot of the hesitation comes from, well, I don't have a discography at all. It's very pressuring to put out your first album and be like, this is the first mark I'm ever going to make. And you're also afraid, is that what people are going to remember me by? Is as I evolve, they're just going to remember that it's Quyne from Wacky World, not Quyne the Magician. And I remember releasing It's a Wacky World, and I think I was over it a couple months after it was released. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to sound like this anymore. I know, because I was evolving since then. And then, so I think that it's very important to encourage singers to put shit out there, even though it's not perfect, even though it's not representative of who they want to be. It's representative of who they are now and where they're going.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. What you're currently working on, like whatever project you're creating or going to create and put out, just realize it's not you. It's just what you are producing now. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that at the end of the day, everything that we put out there is a small piece of the puzzle of who you are, whether it's what you made years ago to what you're working on now to what you've released last year. Here's another thing too. When I was working on Charlie and the Storyteller and Nobody's Girl, I wanted to pump them out so fast because I want people to forget Quyne from It's a Wacky World. I listened to it not too long ago and I was like, this is not a bad album. Why was I ashamed of it? And it's no slight against VJ Giant, by the way, who produced the album and did it amazingly. I think I was just ashamed of who I was representing myself as back then because I didn't know enough about myself. But then I listened to the music and I'm like, oh, it's actually good music. And I still resonate with it because it's still a part of me, even though it's years ago. And once you kind of accept those parts of your past, there's a lot more self-confidence there because you are an amalgamation of everything you were before, everything you are today, and everything you will be tomorrow.
Wise words. So to wrap things up, last two questions. First one, where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Quyne Mariah, QuineMariah. If you want to listen to my music, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Pandora, you name it, literally everything. And you can just type in my name, Quyne, Quyne. That's just my one name right there. Boom.
And last question is for those people that currently don't know what the hell they want to do with their life. They just listened to this podcast. They are still on the fence about what the hell they want to do with their life. Ultimately, they don't know if they want to be in the arts, if they want to be making tons of money as bankers and maybe become unhappy with that later on. But they just don't know what they want to do. So what advice would you give people as to how they can find what to do with their life?
I find that those people who worry about those fears are typically, no matter where they are in life, if they're 16, if they're 28, if they're 43, it's one correlation I found is that they worry about it being too late. They feel pressured to just get the hell up and know exactly what they're doing. But because they don't, that's the inner conflict we're trying to tackle here. So no matter what age you are, a lot of people need to remember that we are constantly evolving as human beings. We may even do a whole career shift within 15 years, and we may have never seen it coming. We've got to follow our curiosity. It kind of goes back to a lot of that. Like, if we're so scared of the unknown, but we want to change what we know, then we have to venture into the unknown. If you've always admired the work of painters and you've never painted, that's telling something. Maybe that's trying to lead you to paint. To me, I think before I even started training, my curiosity was very present when I was a child. And so whenever I would see someone sing or act, I was always curious. And that's what drew me to the arts. So no matter what age you are, it's never too late. Just remember to be curious.
Beautiful. Thank you, Quyne. Give it up for Quyne Mariah Vu. Please go out, give her a follow, give her a like, comment on her stuff. It helps her, it helps us, and we can continue bringing on new people to give you advice on why they are doing what they're doing and when they realized what they were going to do with the rest of their life. Quyne, thank you so much. Looking forward to your next album. Looking forward to any content that you put out, since she does a lot more. Just go check her out. and you'll see everything that she does. Thank you so much. Much love.